Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to a pair of replays, and normally I say a pair of you replays or occasionally a pair of my replays, but we've actually got a mixed bag today, which is a little bit unusual, but you will, I hope, see the connection by the time we get to the second one, or the end of the second one anyway. We're starting off with this 9.9 game from MyNameIsPuffs, who is, as we can see, in the mighty Chiri, the OP tier 7 Japanese auto-loading medium tank. And I say medium in the loosest possible sense of the word, because if you're not aware, this is a bit of an odd beast. It's basically got the same gun as the tier 6, and it gets a bit slated for having this particular gun, but honestly, compared to some of the other tier 7 mediums, it's not bad. It's better than the T43 and the KB13. It is better than the Comet, although the Comet might have a DPM advantage, I can't say offhand. But the unique feature of this is that it has a 3-round autoloader, and it also has an autoloader that can mount a gun rammer. Now, the targets that you can hurt, I mean, you can see the rate of fire there, that how quickly you can get those shots off. It's, I can't remember offhand, but it's something like 130 damage per shell, so it's the equivalent of a KV3 122mm shell. So if you can get something that you can hurt, you can actually lay down quite a large amount of damage, and as you can see, the reload between clips isn't too bad either. The downsides are, although it is in theory a medium tank, it is horrendously slow for a medium tank. It also has no armour, it's also huge, as you can see. This thing is actually more the size of a heavy tank, so yes, so much for using medium mobility or trying to stay stealthy. This thing really can't do either. So it is a pure support medium, and sometimes you can, if the circumstances are right, do a lot better than that. But generally speaking, you need somebody else to be taking the hits. You need somebody else to be getting shot at, because if you're getting shot at, it's very likely going to pen, and you only have so many hit points to go around. I have exactly the same problem with the tier 7 turreted British TD, the Challenger, which again is a pure support vehicle. The number of scenarios where you can go on the offensive with that thing are fairly limited. So far it's just had a couple of scouts and a low tier heavy, or lower tier heavy to shoot at. He is top tier, it's very good matchmaking. And as you can see from the minimap, well, it's actually not looking too bad at all. We've got plenty of tanks in the town. There's only 2 tanks on this side, but they're both top tier. But unfortunately the IS has just suddenly lost possession of his faculties, and well, if you've played this map before, you'll know that there's almost certainly some tanks sitting back in B1 and B2 sniping. There's also artillery, and that IS is just getting rapidly demolished. So that really is a very good way to throw away a top tier heavy tank in pursuit of 2 tier 6 heavies. And then we can see a Panther M10, and there's also a heavy back there as well. So yes, although Puffs has managed to take that guy out, and he's actually up to nearly 1900 damage, he is now, apart from this MT25, alone. And the MT25, I don't think he lasts that much longer either. So as we can see, a Bishop got spotted, and he's got to be a bit careful, because the Bishop's shells, if they hit him, they could pen him for 400 plus damage. It's something like that. He's trying to take a couple of blind shots at the Bishop. We know he's got 6th sense, so he's definitely not spotted. But apparently that Bishop is behind a rock or behind a dip in the landscape or something. So he's just working over what targets he can, and he does get a couple of hits into, well, I think 1 hit into that Panther M10. And that Panther M10 is actually, even though he's top tier, even though he has a gun that is roughly equivalent, it's slightly less penetration in fact. I think it's the long 75mm, the L70, I want to say, which is 150 average pen. So it's actually, again, slightly worse pen than this. I can't remember the alpha offhand, but yeah, he spends the whole battle spamming premium rounds, which is not a good way to make money in a premium tank, but anyway. Now, Puffs unfortunately wasn't leading those shots on the M6 particularly well, so he only gets 1 out for 3 in. And although a missed shot doesn't matter that much in this autoloader, given the actual the reload clip to clip, suddenly he's basically out of friends. despite the vast majority of the team, over 2/3 of the non-artillery players being in the town, they've just been annihilated, utterly wiped out. And it's one of those games where you're looking at the minimap and you're thinking, oh, it's fine, we've got enough tanks in, you know, this side, we've got enough tanks on that side, and we know roughly where the enemies are, so... yeah, it looks fine, all up until the point where sudden disaster occurs and everybody just dies within the space of 60 seconds, and what looked like a reasonably even matchup suddenly becomes a one-sided slaughter. Or indeed, a one-sided slaughter. The Panther has finally moved up, and as we can see, yes, he's got the rear of a Chiri, and he's just throwing his credits away by spamming premium because, okay, of course he is. It's your credits, buddy, you know, you can throw them away if you like. But he is now truly alone, artillery's dead, his only real option now is to go down fighting, and he has himself switched to his premium AP for the next clip. He actually fired, I think, 1 shell at the M6, or was it 2? I can't remember. This thing doesn't even get APCR, it gets premium AP, so you don't get any massive advantages in terms of premium ammo with this thing, other than extra penetration. The shells don't fly faster. Although I suppose being AP over APCR, they have more normalization. But as you can see, RNGesus grants that M10 a bit of extra life, 1 hit point. It does occasionally happen. And as you'll see from the scores, the utter and sudden collapse in the town becomes very explicable when you realise that he did almost as much damage as the rest of his team combined. The rest of his team combined did 4,318 damage, spread across 14 tanks. He, in his 1 tank, did 4,213 damage. Now, he had a high caliber, which got him courageous resistance, which meant this was the equivalent, XP-wise, of a win. He actually had more XP than almost all of the enemy team. Only the top scoring player on the enemy team had more than him, and even then it was just less than 20 hit points. No, just over 20 hit points. So that was pretty galling. But at least he can say he did the very best that he could. And he went down swinging, and the reason that game failed was not because of him. Next up, it's a replay of mine from 9.8, and at this point I am going to put on my Morpheus glasses and say, what if I told you that I could do more damage in less than half the time, but end up with less than half the XP? How is that possible? Well, more damage is not too hard to believe. This is the FV 215B183, the infamous Death Star, well, the British Death Star. That appellation is also occasionally applied to the T92, the Conqueror gun carriage, and of course the Jaegeru, although the Jaegeru more tends to get called the Jaegeru. In fact, I don't think anyone's ever really called that a Death Star, so I retract that statement entirely. This is a map where I'm, well, obviously tier 10, very top tier, but there's no artillery, and that's crucial on the, I want to say Serene Coast? I think it's Serene Coast. I'm possibly wrong. No, it is Serene Coast. Yes. This flank is usually more important because the other flank generally ends up being a stalemate. The enemy team can defend from near their cap, and the whole thing just grinds to a halt. But as you can see, although initially it looked like we had a bunch of mediums coming over here, and I was coming over here to back them up, as well as an M103, the M103 has inexplicably decided to go on the 4 line. 2 of the mediums, including a tier 10, are holding all the way back on the G line, and the only person that's actually gone forward is an MX-30. Even the scout's running away, and at this point I realise, okay then, no, I'm not going to go forward because with a 25-second reload, all that's going to happen is I'm going to fire once, they're going to swarm me, and that's going to be it, game over. But this is not necessarily disaster because we don't know exactly where all the enemy tanks are. We already know we're outnumbered on this flank just from that AMX-30 and the scouts spotting, but it doesn't look that bad, but actually, yeah, it's kind of starting to. Okay, now I think I hit that leopard I don't know where I hit him, but I hit him with an AP shell, so it penned. And that got me over 1,000 damage with one hit. Now, the AP shells with this gun, they have very high penetration, but they are somewhat notoriously waffish, I'll put it that way. They have a tendency to... oh, hello. Yes, no, I did just one-shot an M103. Yes, I had switched the Hesh at this point because, hey, look, I'm all alone. The AP shells have a nasty habit of going in people's tracks or bouncing off unexpectedly, and with a 25-second reload, yes, I tend to fire more HE and Esh than anything else. But this is why I decided to hang back. I knew I wasn't going to be able to retreat entirely in this thing, but more distance to cover means more time, and that was utterly ridiculous. Another one shot, he wasn't quite full health, but the fact that that shell hit him at all was just praise RNGesus, I suppose. Meanwhile, taking all kinds of fire in the side, and looking at the minimap, we could see that this is, yes. The scenario we're seeing playing out here is the enemy team basically all Zerg rushed the western flank. Our team basically Zerg rushed the, splash, the eastern flank, and everybody's just driven round the side of the map and not really encountered many enemies. So we've lost 5 tanks, they've lost 3. And we're about to cap. So, I did say in less than half the time I would do more damage but get less XP. And this is how. We capped with now 4 dead on the enemy team and 5 dead on our team. Now, the reason why you get people raging about caps in these kind of situations, well, let's just take a look at the scores. Now, with a total of 4,718 damage and 2 kills, I was the top scorer of either team with a grand total of 547 base XP. Wasn't that wonderful? The rest of my team combined did 5,630 damage, combined over 14 players in a tier 10 battle. The reason why everybody's XP was so damn awful, even on the winning team, is because nobody did any damage, and this is why people get so hot and bothered about games like this. And this is an extreme example, but the more enemy tanks that are left alive with lots of hit points, as in this case, the less damage anybody has been able to do and the less XP there is around, because capping is a fixed, finite amount of XP. There's only, it's 100 points, 100 cap points. And each of those points is worth, I think, 1 XP? I might be wrong, it might be 2. But basically, for a tier 10, firing your gun just once, for most tier 10s, gets you more XP for, you know, getting a full damage roll than capping to 100%. So, this kind of result is just utterly head in hands. That's how, on a win, I got less than half the XP of MyNameIsPuffs on a crushing defeat. So that's the theme of today. That's the linkage between these two replays. And I'm kind of tempted to ask, you know, they're both horrible scenarios to be in as a World of Tanks player. Which would you rather have? An absolutely crushing victory, and I mean crushing in a bad sense, or an absolutely glorious defeat? Because I know which pays better, but on the other hand, it's a defeat. But on the other hand, this win left an utterly sour taste in my mouth, although it was slightly leavened by the fact that it was my TD mission 15 with honours for the T28 HTC on this game. This was it. Yeah, I don't know. That stupid shot on the leopard made it all possible, and that was all down to RNGesus. But hey, so many of the missions are down to RNGesus. Anyway, with that horrible choice in your mind, should you care to try and answer that question? Well, you can do so in the comments below. You can hit the like button. You can subscribe to my channel. And, as always, stay tuned for more.